many of y'all have ever been to a U2 concert? Okay. In the 80s and 90s, they closed out every single one of their concerts with 40, which is right out of the Psalms. And a lot of people didn't know that. A lot of folks had never darkened the door of a church, and you'd have 85,000 people, 100,000 people singing the Psalms and not even knowing it, right? And I just think it's like what God does is God will often hide stuff in plain sight. Right? And then it's revealed. And revelation just means something that gets uncovered. And so when we ask, say in the Psalms, "Oh, search me, O God, and know me," there's parts of our own lives that are not revealed to us, right? And so part of the path that we're on together collectively as a community and as relationships in this place is just to discover with each other the things that either impede love in our life, right? This is what Rumi says, remove every barrier to love. Don't go seek love, just remove the barriers to love, right? And as we do that collectively, both individually and collectively, I really think God's up to something when we do that. And so we're going to look at, we're going to sing the song, but then also today I'm going to just kind of go through a number of things that I've learned with y'all about U2 over the last couple of weeks together. But let's read Psalm 40, and this comes out of the Message. Let me see if this is on. Yeah, and Tom and Bib, you're going to read this. So.
I waited and waited and waited for God. At last he looked. Finally he listened. He lifted me out of the ditch, pulled me from the deep mud. He stood me on a solid rock to make sure I wouldn't slip. He taught me how to sing the latest God song, a praise song to our God. More and more people are seeing this. They enter the mystery, abandoning themselves to God.
Blessed are you who give yourselves over to God. Turn your backs on the world's sure thing. Ignore what the world worships. The world's a huge stockpile of God wonders and God thoughts. Nothing and no one compares to you. I start talking about you, telling what I know, and quickly run out of words. Neither numbers nor words account for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. This psalm, I just want to look at a couple of the phrases in this. The last couple of lines. More and more people are seeing this. They enter the mystery, abandoning themselves to God. I think that's the goal of the spiritual life, is to enter into the mystery of God and abandoning ourselves to that, which means really that God ends up dealing with things like our own desire to control the outcome. Does anybody struggle with wanting to do that in about every aspect of their life? Right? Can I? Right? Okay. Thank you. Right? That's part of the work that the spiritual life does. As my spiritual director continues to say, that the goal of the spiritual life is to create more interior freedom, that we might be free. Free then to live in a way without fear, without the sense of anxiety, without depression. Not that those things aren't in the mix of our lives, but they're not driving the car. They're not central to everything that we do and every decision that we make. That we're free then to live in a way that is unfettered. That's to step into a mystery and to surrender control. Surrender the outcome. Give ourselves to the process. And I really believe that that's at the heart of the spiritual life. In so many ways, we have just screwed up spirituality in our context in our world. We've reduced it down to a set of these little breath mints, little chewable doses that we take called beliefs. And if you believe these things, ideas, you get to go to heaven. If you don't, you get to go to hell. Like, how convenient that all of us here believe. Well, right? But when we come to the gospel, we see that the Spirit of God has been poured out on all flesh. That's what both Acts and Joel say. And so that we begin to see that it's not our mind, really, that is the primary way that we engage with God. It's this, what the Hebrews try to figure out how to say, your mind, body, spirit. It's your entire being. And so when we're brought into the mystery of God, we surrender our life and our will to the care of God. It will take us places and into relationships we never imagined. It will have us face things that we feel maybe are unfaceable. It will allow us to be in relationship with people with whom we never thought we'd be in relationship with. And we begin to go on a journey. Ram Dass says it like this: we're just taking each other's hand and walking each other home. That's what the life of the Spirit is about. And anything that would reduce it to a chewable dose and say it's just this is wrong. And so we enter into the Spirit through, as Paula D'Arce says, our own life. That's the context that the Spirit of the living God shows up. Hey, y'all ready to sing? All right, here comes Sam and Jeff. And so we're going to sing 40, and you guys are making a slow entrance. Let's give them a hand, folks.
I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined and heard my cry. He brought me up out of the pit, out of the miry clay. I will sing a new song.
Sing it with us.
I will sing a new song. How long to sing this song? How long to sing this song? How long? How long? How long? How long to sing this song? He set my feet upon a rock and made my footsteps firm. Many will see and hear. I will sing a new song. I will sing a new song. How long to sing this song? How long to sing this song? How long? How long? How long? How long to sing this song? I will sing a new song. 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 Sing that again. I will sing a new song. I will sing a new song. How this song? How long to sing this song? How long? How long? How long? How long to sing this song?
I've asked Sam and Jeff if maybe like most of the weeks we get together, if they would just lead us in something. We just could sing together. And so there's something about singing that is huge. One of the things I love about this song and this psalm is that it holds these parts together that often we don't know how to talk about. They're just held together in us. Because my hunch is that each of us are standing over something in our life. A relationship, an experience of the past, a fear that we have. And all we can sing is, how long, O Lord? How long is it going to be like this? How long is these things not going to change? How long will it be? Forever? That I feel like this? That this situation remains? Does that make sense? We all are standing over something like that. And the hope, I think, that comes in the gospel, that comes in the collection of folks like us that are attempting to walk in vulnerable ways with each other, is that the very Spirit of God says, there will come a day that you will sing a new song. That out of the depth and the pits of whatever you're standing over, as a very wise person says to me every week, it won't always be like this, Matt. It could get worse. But it won't be like this. Right? And there's something oddly hopeful about that for me, I think, because there's a sense in which, is it always going to be like, am I always going to feel this powerless? Yes. But it won't always be like this. And there is Paul says it like this. You're experiencing death, but at the same time, there's this life that's working in you. There's a life that is working in you. And so in the Psalm 40, as we sing, how long, O Lord? There's also this future that God calls us into that says, you'll sing a new song one day. You'll sing a new song. I think that it is incumbent upon us gathered in this place to find each other where we are saying, how long, O Lord? I don't want to show you often the places I sing how long. Right? This is not things I post on Facebook. Right? These are not things that I want to speak out of my throat. But we need folks that will saunter up to us and say, I hear you singing the song, how long? And wait with us patiently for the Lord. And then begin often to teach each other how to sing new songs. You don't learn anything on your own. Nothing you will learn in your life will be self-taught. There may be some innate impulses that you have. Everything that you learn will be in context with the relationship with another person, another entity, another energy. And so to think that you can nut it up, pull the mask so tight that you can wait it out and then act as if you've got no problems and you've just arrived the way you've always arrived, perfect and well put together, is an absolute joke. Right? It's just a joke. Some of y'all are dying of spiritual constipation. You're just like, oh, let's cut that out of whatever video is going to be put up. But there is a deep sense, though, of that we need each other in that. So I want us to go through some of the lessons, the life journeys that I think are important in this. The first one, the first lesson that I want to kind of unpack quickly is from the first week. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. That life is a journey. It is not a destination. It is a process. That doubt is as important to your faith as what you say in one of the sanctuary services when you recite the creed. That being able to doubt is not antithetical to faith. It is not the opposite of faith. The opposite of faith is certainty. The opposite of faith is having it all together and you don't have any questions anymore. Jesus said it, I believe it, that settles it. Right? That's not it. That there will always be questions that you have. And in the midst of this, there's something in you that summons you to things that you don't know, to ask questions that aren't resolved in your life, that you haven't found what you're looking for. That's why when you get all the degrees that you can get, when you have more money than Jesus, Joseph, and all the saints, right? You got all of your borders secure, and you wake up in the middle of the night and you wonder, this isn't enough. Why do I feel empty? Right? Because there's things inside of you that stuff and degrees and achievement will never fill. And so life, I think, is a part of the journey. It's not the destination. And I think it's really, really okay to go look, to journey, to experiment. We sometimes get lost in our experiments. I call those experiments in my own life addictions. But there's times we get lost. And we'll find often that the grace of God breaks into the very places that we get lost in, and that our very mess becomes the message of our life. Often that's the grace of God, that our mess becomes the message. And so life is a journey. The second place, I'll say, we didn't go through this song, but it comes out of How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, that album. And it's called From Vertigo. And it's, the line is, I'm at a place called Vertigo. It's in this, it's interesting, it's in this song that Bono is dealing with the temptation of Christ. In Vertigo, where Jesus is standing on top of where Satan takes in the story in Mark, where he takes him up to the pinnacle of the temple and says, all of this can be yours. Just give me what I want and nobody gets hurt, is the line in the song. And he's at a place of vertigo because often life can be very unnerving. And what we often want our spirituality, as we've talked about, to do is to secure our life. We want our spirituality, we want Jesus. If you're up to anything, Jesus, if you're good for anything, will you secure my life? And what we find in a more mature spirituality is what Richard Rohr calls order, disorder, reorder, or what Walter Brueggemann and what John and I've been preaching about in the sanctuary service is the orientation, disorientation, reorientation. And that is the pattern always of life. And I don't know about you, but there's often places in my life that are oriented and other places that are disoriented. So it's not just a one thing inside of me or inside of you. But you often find yourself at a place of vertigo, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go. And often this is the work of the Spirit to deepen us. And that if our spiritual life is only to secure our borders and make us happy and secure, we will never move out of the shallow end of the spiritual life. And so often, the first couple of stages of a spiritual life is to make sure that I know who I am, that I belong, that my life is safe and secure. That's what families are about, right? We want our children to live in our families, to know that they are safe and secure. But if as an adult, I'm walking my 28-year-old child across the road saying, look both ways, I have not done a good job, right? I've infantilized them. I've kept them at the short and the shallow end of life. Often our spiritual life brings us to a place of vertigo where we are disordered and we don't know what to do. That's where faith is. That's where we learn about how to trust for the next step. And so often we find ourselves in places of vertigo where order, disorder, and reorder are a part of it. Let me say this as well, and I've said this before, and I don't know why this is important to me right now, but I have found, say, in the disorder, it comes with it feels like darkness sometimes. And I've found that darkness teaches me sometimes more than the light can. When I'm in the light, sometimes I can't see stuff because I'm either so blinded or I'm like, yahoo! It's always going to be like this. Whoa, let's go. And then I hit disorderedness. Something happens in my life that disrupts this, and I think, oh no, I'm not in control. I want to constrict all these things that begin to happen to us emotionally and spiritually. Often in the places between the thresholds of order, disorder, or disorder, reorder, we're open to really learn the most about our lives. And so if you're in a place where you feel disordered, the question isn't, how do I get back to order? The question is, what does my soul require of me? Now, your psyche, your ego will want to get back to a place where it's just like you've got it all locked down and you're safe. And there's nothing wrong with that. Often, though, the question that your spirit is asking, your soul is asking, is what is required of me? What's required of me? And you will only know that often in times of those thresholds that move us to places that feel quite disordered to us. And then this. I started signing off all of my emails with this. We get to carry each other. And then Jeff Pate, you said last week that phrase that really have been stuck with me this whole week. It leaves you, baby, if you don't care for it. All right, this comes out of the song One. That really the journey is about being able to, and James says it like this, and this is where Bono gets this line. Bear one another's burdens, or in the Message, carry each other. We get to carry each other. Not we have to. Not it's up to you to solve everybody's problem. That moves us into a place of control that doesn't work out. But we get to carry each other. We get to bear up one another's burdens. We get to be in relationship with each other where we begin to let each other in on things. And we get to walk with each other in that. There's a gift in that. You will not know what it means to be liberated if all you're only doing is securing your own borders and making sure that the mask is only on you and your family. That's important. But also at some point, we have to reach on beyond that and have to give what we've received. And we get to carry each other in that. It's huge and important, I think. And then, Jeff, would you say again what you said last, that insight that you had, if you can summons it up from last week?
Yeah, the way that as I mentioned, it was something I felt like I was carrying on my heart for a few weeks, and it strikes me almost that it's a bit of a throwaway line. It's a bit of like a bridge into the next maybe meatier part of the song. That's really where I found the meaning of it. Is yes, we get to carry each other, but it's an opportunity. It's not an opportunity that's open indefinitely. Last thing I would say, as it strikes me, the way that it hits me is showing up is a necessary part of the process. but it's not in and of itself sufficient. Right? It requires intentionality, and it requires taking that risk that we talked about as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you got to show up, and that gets you in the parking lot. It's not the game, which kind of sucks, right? I mean, spiritually speaking, I mean, it's just terrible because I want it to. I've showed up, and by osmosis, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to change, right? That's why showing up gets us in the parking lot. The game is when we do the work of what Jeff is talking about, taking the risk. Saying things, establishing relationships, looking at parts of our own lives where there might be resentment or fear or anger or shame, and actually beginning to ask the questions, what is this about? What is this about? Why does this have so much energy? A deeply spiritual question to ask these things. There's times when you will feel summoned into this work in a real, particular way. There's been times in my past where I knew that I was being asked by God to look at something in my life, and just the feeling that I could look at it was enough to put me back to sleep, to say, I'll get around to that. And then when I wanted to get around to that, I felt like the window had closed in some ways. And so when the window is open, walk through it. Walk through it. Yes?
Remember in Ray Anderson's class where he said the next line after carry one another's burdens is also, we also get to carry our own love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's an easy one to mix up.
Yeah, that's
where
good.
I want to carry someone and I want to carry their load simultaneously, and I think somehow spiritually God gives me the resources to do both of those things. But actually I don't think God gives us the resources to carry someone and bear their load.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. You're pretty smart. Yeah. Yeah. That's my wife, by the way. So Michelle and I had a professor in seminary that really unpacked this James verse. And that's right. It's a two-sided coin. Bear one another's burdens, but carry your own load, is what James says. And so the wisdom is to know the difference. What is your load and what is another person's burden, right? Because often you'll meet people that want you to carry their burden under the guise of we get to carry each other. That has been kind of diagnosed as codependency. That also becomes a deep distraction to your own work, to your own spiritual life. One of the biggest distractions of my own life is no shocker that I'm a pastor, is because often in my family of origin, trying to save my mom, save my dad, make sure everybody's right, that was my work. And I just entered into a profession where I get paid for it, right? And I'm called to it. That's not that, right? But the other part of that though too, is that often that muscle of trying to save another person, taking another person's burden off, is the equivalent to opening up a cocoon that a butterfly is attempting, a caterpillar struggling to get out of. You end up killing the very thing the process that particular species needs in order to grow. And so I think that the wisdom is to know the difference between what we carry of another person's and what is their load that is theirs to carry. It's particularly hard in families. Particularly hard if you have a son or a daughter. Particularly hard if you love someone in your family that's really struggling with something. And this is why I think that we have to enter into these things on the buddy system with wisdom of other people that have figured this out a little along the way, and maybe farther down the road. There's groups like Al-Anon that do this. There are spiritual directors. There's therapists that help us do these things. I'm not sure what that was, but that was... Bear one another's burdens. We get to carry each other. But carry your own load. What is your load to carry that only you can carry? That's your work. That cannot be anybody else's work. that's yours to figure out. Those things are quite important. Yeah. Is that good? All right. And then the next one I'll say is one of my favorite songs, Elevation, where he says that the goal is soul. In fact, he has this green guitar. I've got a poster of it that I had it in my room till it had to be moved to my son's room. But I have no resentment about that either. This comes from the song "All That You Can't Leave Behind" from the album. And I think in some ways what we're doing is that we're seeking transcendence. We're seeking to be able to transcend our what Jung might call our smaller egos. What Richard Rohr is defining as sometimes in our culture as the problem, these smaller ego projects that we get involved in, with who has the most and who's the smartest and who's the best looking, and we get into all these comparisons in the places that we live. The goal is to transcend that, because none of that stuff matters in the end. None of that can save you. It can put you to sleep. It can anesthetize you. It can make you feel warm at smaller places and smaller times. There's enough that we need. There's stuff that we need. But if that's the way that we evaluate our entire life, we will never grow. And that's why belief systems and knowing Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior might be the first step. It is not the journey. It is not the journey. And so the journey becomes when we are transcending these smaller ego projects, where we can be of use to the world. We can be of use to our families. We can be liberated within our own beings. And so the goal is soul. And I think that's why in the second half of life, this question, what does my soul require of me, comes up. And if you don't answer that, you'll never grow. You'll never grow, and your spirit won't grow. Sunday, Bloody Sunday. This is one of the first songs I ever heard, and where he talks about really kind of the troubles in Ireland. And then you begin to see this band begin to sing about Central America, begin to sing about the things that are happening with third world debt and the AIDS crisis and all these things. And then Bono steps into this place as and begins to advocate for things across the world, that just because he's a Christian, he begins to say, oh, maybe we can do something about some of these things. And so ignoring the brokenness is not an option, right? To become a Christian, again, is not something that secures our life, and then we just try to maintain this stable place all of our life until we die and pass it on to our kids. That's not the goal. In the spiritual life, it's this ever-expanding sense of what God is doing in the world. Stepping into the mystery of God, and then the mystery of God in this world. And so some of the folks that have gone down to Guatemala this last year, stepping into that mystery of God, seeing the brokenness in the world, there's something we can do about it. We can't do everything. We can do something, right? And this idea of compassion for fatigue, this idea of being overwhelmed by the need, we can't do it all. We can do something. You can do something. And so not being put to sleep by the pain of the world, allowing it to wake you up and to step into something. Not ignoring the brokenness of the world, but engaging with that at some step. I think that's where... I forget who said this. I think all it takes for evil to succeed is for good people not to step into that place. Who said that? If we don't know, we're just going to say Ben Franklin right there. That's what we're going to do. But there's something about that for really evil to succeed. The collective consciousness of our own ignorance. All we have to do is do nothing. And so you can't do everything, but we can do something. And so being engaged in our city, being engaged in the neighborhoods that we live in, being engaged with the folks that are on the other side of the highway, all these things are absolutely important. And it's where we grow. I'm going to go through these kind of fast because I didn't realize how much we're running out of time. It's a beautiful day. We live in a marvelous creation. I don't know if you noticed when you walked out of your house to your car today, like, it's pretty nice being in Houston right now. You know, I don't know about in August, but right now, and one of the things that my sponsor continually has me do is to write, and we've talked about this before, write a gratitude list. Because often our reptilian brains, our brain stems are set and settled to see what is coming and what's going wrong. Right? That's just meditation. We meditate. And our brains are trying to figure out what's going wrong and how I can get ahead of it to make sure that I'm going to be okay. We have to cultivate places of gratitude to where we can stand and say, it's not perfect, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I don't think anything else does that better than cultivating a gratitude list. And then this song, Crumbs from Your Table. This relates really kind of to the one before, but this is one of my favorite songs. It comes out of the New Testament where Jesus is going to the other side. And Bono takes this phrase out of the gospel where the Syrophoenician woman comes to Jesus who has this daughter that is sick and is dying, and she's taken her everywhere and nothing can heal her. And she says, will you do something? And Jesus is like, hey, I didn't come for you people. I came for the house of Israel. And this woman says, even the dogs get the crumbs from your table. And Jesus goes, wait a minute. The grace of God has moved beyond where I thought the grace of God was located. The boundaries of God's grace. Right? And I think even in the life of Jesus, the cheese gets moved in Jesus' life to beyond where he thought his mission was going to be. It gets moved to the Gentiles. It gets moved to y'all, to me. And so this idea of the crumbs from your table, distance, Bono says, does not determine who and who is not my neighbor. And so as we begin to kind of walk in success, some of that generosity is to ask, how am I to use the things that you've given me? How am I to use the things that you have given me to make this world a better place, to really bear witness to the fact that Jesus is in the healing business, is in the restoration business, is in the life of bringing things together, of bringing resources to folks that don't have resources spiritually, physically, psychologically, mentally, familially. All of this is important. And then this, what more in the name of love? This song, I think that it's love is a risk, and you've got to risk it. And I think what Paul says in the end of the day, faith, hope, and love abide the greatest things. The greatest of these is what? Love. Is love. It's the only thing that will endure. I got really angry at my son yesterday. He had a practice that he was going to, and he didn't set his alarm. Wrong, right? And I was just like angry because I had something to get to, and I just remember being quite pissy. And I treated him out of my shallow end, and I thought, well, maybe this is a boundary. Maybe he'll see how disappointed I am, and maybe he'll come correct on that. And as I was driving away from him, I had this vision of my own dad. And the anger of my own dad never taught me anything. Anger is not an educator. And I had to turn my little butt back around and pull him out and say, I gotta apologize to you. Only love endures. Philip introduced me to one of his friends, a guy named Bob. How does Bob say it?
Stozic.
Yeah, how does he say it though? How does he say this?
thing in my life that has always worked is love.
The only thing in my life that has always worked is love. And so, what more in the name of love? I think we have to risk it forward. We have to risk it forward. And then this. Sometimes you can't make it on your own. I'll say this again, community is essential. You have to have a community or a soul friend to walk with. It's just essential. Christianity, in the end of the day, I'll keep saying this till the day I die, is not a belief system. It is a belonging system. Jesus did not show up with a creed and a things and a checkbox for things for people to believe in. He said this, come and see. And in the relationship of come and see, they began to believe that who he is who he said he was. But who they thought he was very different than who he became. Does that make sense? It's not a belief, it's a belonging system. And if in the body of Christ we believe the very Spirit of God has been poured out on this place, and where the 2 or 3 are gathered, then the relationships in this and how we do relationships in this place and in this community means something. And as we get more vulnerable and loving, and as we take risks with each other and move out into this world with risks, the world bears witness that, maybe, just maybe those folks would receive me where I'm hurting and in need. And maybe I can find what I need for the journey in this place. That's the hope of the spiritual life. I got some more, but we're running out of time, and so I'm going to pause there and say, what are some of your insights? What are some of the things that you see? What are some of the things you want to say? Yes, John.
Remember a time in Bono's career where he overstepped, got it wrong, did the wrong thing to the wrong people, and we're all human.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Bono is not Jesus, and he will tell you, he'd be the first one to tell you that his ego is so big that he's gotten it wrong often. One of the things that he said, that song one came out of when they were about to break up, when he was trying to jam his own vision into everybody else's life. And he'll say in the book that one of the things he struggles with is deep anger, is an anger towards folks, particularly that he loves. And one of the insights into that I've heard recently is that anger and grief often are connected. And so in his own life, with the death of his grandfather and then 2 days later his mother, and then it set off this, there wasn't a way for him to process that besides get angry. And so he's really spent the last 10 years figuring out how to grieve. And a bunch of amazing songs have come out of that. So, yeah. Any other insights or questions or things you want to say?
I thought, growing up with you two, that was my pathway, they are my pathway to be here. And one of the things that has always impressed me so much, and I felt that sense of belonging in community, is that they called upon everyone in a theater, from the stage to do something good out there in the world, like Amnesty International and all that. And it pains me when I see the criticism that has been lobbed against, particularly Bono, because he is so outspoken and he's very decidedly aware of the ego and everything else. And I almost feel like it's becoming, I feel like it has become sort of well, let's pile on you too. Because, I don't know. There's something about that their purity of what they're trying to say, that it is about God, it is about community and belonging and doing the right thing. And I don't know if it's because they're so wealthy or whatever, but I've noticed this intense criticism developed over the years, and it seems to me that lines up with the criticism of the Christian church. And I admittedly was one of those critics for many, many years. So, I don't know, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, there's a part of me that's using you too to get to more spiritual stuff. So I don't have much to say about that as probably beyond that. I'm realizing that love is a verb. I always thought it was a feeling, but it's actually a verb. It's not a noun. It's not like a state. It's things that we do to what one phrase that has been helpful to me is that we have to act our way into a new way of thinking. We can't think our way into a new way of acting because we're embodied creatures. Jesus shows up in the incarnation, which is super important to us. And so we act our way. Love is a verb. And whenever we're verbing, there's going to be criticism. And I think that's just part of it. It's part of it. Anyone else? All right, in the weeks to come, we're going to step into a 40-day journey of Lent. And I think what we'll probably unpack together is this process or this journey from awareness to freedom. Part of the way of a mature spirituality is becoming more aware. So how do we do that? How do we do that spiritually, psychologically, relationally? And what is it supposed to produce in our life? And so for 4 or 5 weeks, we'll look at that as we head towards Easter, and then we'll figure out what to do after that. I want to encourage you to continue to invite folks to the class, even if Bono's not going to be here, that folks will... Somebody in your life probably needs a community like this, and they need a community like you. And so we're just going to keep attempting to walk this way together as much as we can. Let's stand and pray with each other. Let's pray. God, I just want to say thank you for the hands that we hold, for the community in this place that you are forming, for the ability and capacity to be summoned to deeper places. God, we also want to acknowledge that many of us are standing over a place in our life, and we sing, "How long, O Lord?" That's a sentiment that many of us are freighted with this morning. And God, we'd ask that you would bring other people along, that your Spirit would move in mysterious ways into this space, and that you would take a hold of us. God, give us a wisdom to know how to carry each other and how to allow other people in our lives to carry their own load. God, among us all, would you teach us how to love? Love from the center of our lives. Continue to teach us that nothing grows in the soil of power, in the soil of anger, in the soil of greed, that only your tenderness. And so, God, we pray that we would become more like you day after day. Come, Holy Spirit. Have your way in us, often in spite of us, but come. It's in your name that we pray, Jesus. Amen.